Alright, hello and welcome back to another deck profile. And today we're going to be taking yet another look at Relinquished. Some new stuff has came out and it's changed a little bit, and I'm still honestly with this deck at all times between about 7 different builds. And I basically just tried to meet somewhere in the middle of just in the middle of all of them, basically, like where there's combo on one side and there's control on the other, and this is trying to go in the middle. And it's a weird deck. I'm gonna immediately preface this with this deck is aggravating. If you're just going online with this deck, you're gonna have some very aggravating matches. You're gonna have a lot of times where this deck has a lot of bad matchups. New stuff like Lair of Darkness and Brandish Maidens are very bad matchups for this deck. Anything with low attack power, anything that doesn't put monsters on board. There's a multitude of decks that are just terrible matchups for this one, which makes it a little bit more aggravating to play, a combo with the fact that it's a going second deck, which limits its card pool and forces it to go second in a game of negation, as well as being a ritual deck, which adds even more inconsistencies to a deck that's already very flawed. But at the end of the day, it is very fun. It's still pretty cool, and something that I'm still quite interested in. Obviously, I've put a lot more time into it than I really should have, especially you know that if you've been around for a while here. Now, going ahead and getting into things, obviously up the top here we have 3 copies of Relinquished. Really don't need to spend too much time on him there. 3 copies of Millennium Eyes Illusionist, basically a hand trap that you can discard to attach things to a Relinquished or Eyes Restrict fusion, in addition to adding itself back anytime one is special summoned to the field, once per turn, and that's special summoned in any way. So it actually functions as a ritual fodder and as a nice hand trap for the deck, which is something that really helps, especially say if you out your opponent's board, or they, especially against like, Lair of Darkness, they tribute something or something like that, and you don't have anything to suck up, you can keep this in hand, then on their turn go ahead and take something, and it adds a nice surprise factor to the deck. We're actually jumping down to the bottom here, not running Magical Illusionist Faceless Mage. This card is very good and does some insanely nutty things when it comes to link plays, but I just found myself drawing it at really suboptimal times and having to just use it for ritual fodder, and then whenever I kind of wouldn't want to go off in combo, you'd have to tribute summon this and then link it away with something else, and it just more and more flaws popped up in the card, and I actually really like it and really want to run it, but we cut it to make room for some other cards that were just testing a lot better. But from there we have King Caballo just at 2. He's also searchable off of Where Art Thou, so we really don't need him at more, plus you don't want to open hands of just 3 of this guy. You want to see him occasionally turn 1, although you more than not want Manju turn 1 for setup, so he's more of a turn 2 going to the mid-game, late-game thing that you use for recovery and some combo plays, but he just, on normal summon, actually goes ahead and special summons a Relinquished or 1,000 Eyes or Millennium Eyes back and sucks some stuff up, lets you go into a rank 1 play. You can turn one of those into a link, and then he adds back to the hand during the end phase, and you can keep using him, so 2 is definitely the optimal number for me in this deck. 3 copies of Manju, which is completely needed for consistency, and for our 1 hand trap, we're actually going 3 copies of Ash Blossom. Now, jumping down to the bottom again, Droll Lockbird is actually searchable in this deck off of Where Art Thou, which is a cute play, but with this being a going second deck, Droll Lock's a lot more lackluster, given you'd have to resolve it after your opponent's already had a turn of setup, where it wouldn't be, it would still be strong, but wouldn't have the same effect. And Ghost Ogre, although it is strong against things like Diagram and other cards like that, say Union Hanger, especially field spells, it does take cards off the board, and this is a deck where you want to keep monsters on your opponent's board because it's crucial to your strategy, which is just another flaw of the deck and something we really do have to work around. So we have Ash just because it's insanely powerful, while still being balanced because it's this weird 1-for-1 that doesn't destroy or anything like that. It's weird. Even as someone who plays mostly casual, I don't have much of a problem with this card. I don't like it much, but I completely understand it and think it's actually a very fair card, albeit annoying. From there we have some Kaijus. We're actually not running Slumber because, again, we, especially in really combo-heavy hands in this deck, will actually want our opponent to have multiple cards in the field, so any type of board wipe or even, Slumber, which puts one on board, actually isn't ideal. but we are running one of just the largest kaiju we can in Jizukiru, and two of Radiant as a target for Allure of Darkness, and he's still pretty big on his own. You could change this up to another, 3,300, and you could change it up to Jizukiru, Thunder King, and Radiant, but I like having the extra Allure target, plus I've never found myself in a situation where I was mad at having two Radiants. I've honestly never even drawn into two of them. But from there, we have even more consistency in pre-prep, and another seemingly strange choice here, Preparation of Rites only at 2. Now, the amount of times that I was testing in this deck, and I'd actually have gone ahead and grabbed all the Relinquished out of my deck and wasn't able to resolve this card, was absolutely insane. 50% of my games I was drawing this card or having this card in hand and not being able to resolve it, so I actually cut it back down to 2, and it was testing a lot better there. And it seems wrong, and in theory it is, but it was just something that was dead more often than not, going past the first couple of turns there. So it's weird, but I actually like it more at 2. At 3, it was just, you'd see it too much, and it's a very good card, but again, with pre-prep, with Manju, with Where Art Thou, we're grabbing them out of deck a lot, and whereas pre-prep can actually go ahead and grab them back from grave, this can't, although it can grab the spells back from grave, so they're each good in their own way, but pre-prep's obviously just a little bit more insane for setup cards. That's why we're going with the 3-2 ratio there. 3 Black Illusion Ritual, just necessary to run the deck. Again, another weird choice of only 2 Where Art Thou, and basically for the same reason as Preparation of Rites. Because this is a setup card that actually inherently takes setup, it's a little bit weaker. There's obviously a lot of times where you could just go ahead and summon a Relinquished or a Thousand Eyes and resolve this before using its effect to play around any strikes or anything that could stop you from searching, but there's still a lot of cards that actually stop this from going off. So I again chose to cut it down to 2 due to the amount of times it was dead. In just kind of requiring a little bit of setup there, but again, it's one of the ones that's testing a little bit better at the 2 rather than 3 spot. Instant Fusion is one of the MVPs of the deck, allowing you access to Thousand Eyes to bait out any strikes or negations or anything like that before you actually go into your Millenniumized Restrict or your Relinquished, which are obviously the main plays. So Instant Fusion is very important in actually being a bait and in letting this deck play through negates. But also Relinquished Fusion helps with that as well. There's a lot of times where you can go ahead and bait something with an Instant Fusion or just a regular ritual and then go for the Relinquished Fusion play, which is actually the main play of the deck because Millenniumize is kind of the end goal, and this is obviously a fusion for that. It banishes no matter what, whether that be hand, field, or grave, although it can access all 3 places to fuse from. And you can also banish it from the grave to attach one monster to any of your Relinquished or Eyes Restrict monsters, but it has to be an effect monster, so a little bit more limited there, but obviously not many things relying on normal monsters. So this lets you bring out your Millenniumized Restrict and then make him big by attaching something else. So if you're summoning him into a board, this is better, although there's more chance of him being hit by something if you're bringing him into a board, but then if you don't bring him into a board, you can't suck anything up, and then he's a 0, and they can just normal summon and swing over it. And the flaws of this deck become very relevant when you really put things together. But for more consistency, something I wasn't playing for a while, we have 3 copies of Allure. Now, why I'm running this, which is a consistency card, but in a more vague sense than things like Preparation of Rites or Where Art Thou to search specific targets of the deck, is because a lot of times, those are the same targets. Those are things that just get you into Relinquished or just get you into Kinkabio or things like that. Whereas this can get you into anything. It can get you a Cyclone you need, it can get you a Kaiju you need, it can get you an Ash Blossom for next turn. So I actually like having this a lot in the deck, and it's been one of the MVPs of helping me get that last piece I needed, which sometimes isn't one of the specific searches we can grab off of other cards. For some more recovery, we have Dark Magic Veil, which is essentially just a Monster Reborn for Relinquished there, and actually, Monster Reborn isn't in here. Monster Reborn should be in here. Just swap out one of the Dark Magic Veils for Monster Reborn, probably. Whatever you want to do, but I'd honestly rather run this at 2 than 1-1, because 1-1 looks ugly, but 2 looks nice and pretty. But in an ideal world, make one of these a Monster Reborn. I still haven't remembered. My brain still hasn't triggered that card's back in the game yet. And round things off with 2 copies of Cosmic Cyclone. Again, Twin Twisters would be nicer because any form of back row can kill this deck quite easily, but it's one of those things where there are some cards you could actually discard. Discarding a Relinquished or Millennium Eyes Illusionist up here. I believe that's his name. Yes. That's not terrible with things like, him being able to add himself back or the Relinquished Fusion, but there's a lot of times where you'll have stuff you don't want to discard. So Cyclone does win the battle there. Moving on to the extra deck, nothing special. We just have the best rank ones in Princess Sprite and Doulahan. And for our links, we have the themed Relinquished Anima that's also specific, but actually, fits in with her Relinquished stuff, has the name, all that. It's a good card. If they put anything in one of those two zones, you can go ahead and suck it up, and it doesn't have to be an effect monster or anything, so it's good, but obviously is limited once they start playing around those zones, especially going into games 2 and 3 there. One Link Karibo, obviously just being insane for the deck, being able to, tribute Relinquished off, then normal summon a Kinkabio and special him back and set something else up. This card just inhibits so much stuff, but again, you really only need one with it being able to special itself back from grave, and it just gives you access to Ningirsu as well, being an amazing Link monster there. One Underclock, one Security Dragon. Because of the easy access to Link Karibo, you can just go ahead, summon a Link Karibo, make this guy under him, and get a very easy bounce there. Proxy just to dump stuff into, Akashic for the bounce, similar effect to Anima obviously, one Troma Unicorn, one Decode Taco, one Girsu, and one Borreload, and then one of Thousand Eyes Restrict, and two of Millennium Eyes Restrict, which if you don't know, he has an effect where he can actually suck up a monster whenever a monster effect is activated, either sucking one up from the field or grave, and then anything attached to it has its effects negated. So obviously this is a card that was used to stop hand traps, and still is to a sense, although now probably being more outshined by Called by the Grave, because they discard for costs. You can actually go ahead and use his effect responding to it, sucking up the one from grave, which it being Chain Link 2 would resolve first, then being able to negate the hand trap, which is Chain Link 1. But anyway, that's my long-winded explanation of the deck where I don't stop talking for. Let's actually check how long that was. That was about 10 minutes of talking straight. So let's go ahead. I'm going to get some water, and then we'll go into the replays for this one. Okay, so getting into our first one here, we're going to start off with a bit of a misplay, but that's alright, because that happens all the time. We all misplay, so it's whatever. As long as you can look back at them and know that you did it and that there was a better way to do it, they're all fine in my book, and it's a learning experience. But anyway, we're up against Dinos up here, obviously a Lost World variant there. We're down here, we have Relinquished Fusion, we have a Millennium Eyes Illusionist, and Ash wear off though, so it's not terrible. However, we were made to go first here, so we're immediately going to pass because we just have nothing that we could really do going first. He'll Fossil Dig, and honestly, whenever I saw Lost World, I just assumed it was going to be more of a bad player and a bad build. So I just immediately Ash Blossomed the Fossil Dig, not really caring. Whereas he has another one, and obviously I should have waited for the double evolution pill there, it being one of the most powerful cards in the deck and susceptible mostly to Ash Blossom. He'll go ahead and do Dino Thing, special out a Dogoran, which is going to be relevant because as he summoned that, I'm like, oh man, I can't kaiju him now. It'd be a shame if I drew a cat, and I did. But we'll actually go ahead and summon that, and when a monster would be normal, yeah, he could have stopped it, which he either had to stop it or use the Ultimate Conductor effect to save his Logia there, but he doesn't do either, so main phase 2 will just Relinquish Fusion, we'll go ahead and suck up the UTC, or actually still in battle phase do that. Forgot about Lost World's 500 there, and then we'll actually, main phase 2, use the Relinquish Fusion here to actually suck up the Dogoran and bump our boy up to 6,000 here. He'll go for double evolution pill here again, but he'll start activating some effects there, obviously, of the Giant Rex in the Lost World, and we can actually respond to the Giant Rex, just suck up the UTC or suck something else out from grave, and with that negated, he just really wasn't doing much from there. Here we're up against Time Lords. More interesting, I actually don't know if this is common or not, but he's actually playing a Celestial Transformation, but that does summon them all out, and even though it destroys them during the end phase, they actually can't be destroyed by battle or card effects, so I'm assuming they'd actually just stay there, so I don't know if that's the spicy tech or not. We're getting into this one here, he's going first, so we'll set up with the Maiden, he'll grab the one that burns on draw and go ahead and set up with some really irrelevant back row there, and burn us a bit on draw, but we'll go ahead and go into Manju, grab our Relinquished, go ahead and, as you can see, tribute off the Millennium Illusionist, which we'll add back. Then we'll go ahead and prep, grab them all back again, allure, ditch one of the doubles we have in hand, suck something up. And I do like to keep Manju on field most times against certain decks because he's really the most attack power that you're going to get in for a turn in cases, especially against things like Time Lords that have a lot of 0/0 bodies. We'll summon Sadion or Sand with that one and go for the Time Maiden, but we're obviously going to pause, let the frame rate catch up here, hopefully. But yeah, we'll obviously Ash Blossom that because we don't want him getting 2 onto the field. He'll burn for the 2000 and swing over the Link Rainbow. No point to activating its effect there since we weren't taking battle damage anyway. He'll go ahead. We'll actually draw a pre-prep for turn, which will obviously, that card's insane. But we really didn't need it anyway because we have King Caballo. We can just go ahead, summon him, bring back a Relinquished, go ahead, suck up the 4K body. At that point, we had enough on field for game, and his back row really wasn't able to do anything there, especially with these needing a endless. They activate by tributing each other or something? No, by tributing this. I don't know. He just really didn't have anything left at that point. And getting into our last one here. This one is going to be a very dull and very boring replay, but it's one that I'm going to show off because this is something that just happens with this deck a lot of the time. It's just something that there really is no getting around, and there's just some inherent flaws with the deck that create situations like this, and it's sad, but it's just something that I've been trying to work around for about a year now with this deck. But anyway, getting into it here, he'll go for Secrets, summon Blue Boy, go ahead, grab a copy of Knowledge there. We'll obviously hit that with the Ash Blossom to stop him from going Mad Plus there. He'll Inheritance and grab Circle, he'll Illusion Magic and grab Dark Magician, which is all correct, pretty much. He actually won't get to grab anything off of that, and he'll just have a Strike and another Knowledge set there. With him having no monsters on field, there's no point to us doing anything as well, and with Relinquished Fusion having to suck up effect monsters and him only triggering when effects are activated, he could easily just go ahead and summon an Apprentice, not activate the effect, and swing over this, obviously knowing he doesn't need to add Dark Magician or anything, so there was no need to actually go for the Fusion there, so he'll pass it back over to us. We'll draw Relinquish for turn, and we'll actually go ahead and just try to summon a Link Reaper to push for 300 a turn and have something on board, but that will actually get hit with a Strike there. Now again, knowing that 2 cards in his hand are big vanillas and that he didn't summon this last turn, I knew that that had to be something that would actually go ahead and advance his game state there, that, he didn't have a navigation or anything in hand, that he has to search it. So we'll go ahead and Ash Blossom the Rod, leaving that on field and giving us something to suck up here. So we'll go ahead and have a little bit of a frame rate drop. Black Illusion Ritual, go ahead, use a Relinquish to suck up the Rod. And I believe here's actually what I'm talking about with preparation of rights. As you can see, I believe we have, actually no, we still do have 1 left in deck there. Okay, I'm thinking of a different duel here. But we'll suck up Magician's Penis, that's obviously what it is. Swing for a little bit of damage there. And he's actually running 3/3/3 for Spellbook, so he's going to start doing Spellbook draw things a lot, but as you can see, he's just not drawing into anything relevant. We're really not drawing it into anything relevant either. We are. He obviously just countered it right there, and it's a very slow, stagnant game state of just poke, 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 and just continuing along that way. Now he'll go for his 3rd Knowledge play here, getting that off and actually drawing into a double strike there. Apprentice swinging over the Relinquished, but his effect obviously sending that, dealing damage to both of us, and then being able to suck that off. I misclicked on defense, but it doesn't matter anyway because then I'll actually get met with a Solemn Strike. But that puts him down to 14, so he won't be able to resolve the other one. And he'll summon Magician of Dark Illusion, but at this point, we can actually go ahead and Instant Fusion, so we have some Tribute fodder. Go ahead and activate the Fusion from Grave, summoning our last copy. Use the Fusion's effect, Fusion card's effect in Grave to grab up the Apprentice and swing for game there. And again, this was a very boring and bland replay where, nothing really happened, and we really only won because our opponent drew quite bad as well, but it's just something that happens with this deck. It's a ritual deck, which means it's inherently bricky. It has consistency issues. Adding to that it has to go second and needs your opponent to have a board and have some specific requirements, and not being able to play well through negates without having a pretty good hand. It's just a recipe for disaster, really. But yes, just at the end of the day, I do love the deck. It's very fun. It's very interesting. It's very cool. And the support's actually pretty good. I think that there's some slight things they could change. I think that if a Millennium Illusionist could target normal monsters as well. I think if this could, the Fusion could target normal monsters as well. I think if they if this didn't banish from hand, more long invocation. There's some stuff they could do better, especially if this guy was a 1. He should be a 1. He should be a 1 and searchable off of Where Art Thou, because that would be the combo. This deck could actually feasibly go first at that point if he was searchable, but he's not. So again, it's good support. It's decent, and it's good in the ways that count, but it's just lacking that little extra to kind of push it into something more viable. So I really don't have much more to say because I've really covered all my points, but again, if you're looking for something fun and interesting, this is definitely a deck I recommend picking up. And just if you're playing casual with friends or something like that, it's very fun. Very, very fun indeed. But anyway, usual plugs at the end of the episode. A link to my Twitter where tweets about new videos go out, and some random thoughts here and there whenever I'm not extremely busy and stressed out. In addition to a link to my Discord as well, where we have some duels, we chill, we talk about Yu-Gi-Oh! And Yu-Gi-Oh! News and things of that nature. And as well, a link to my Patreon where you can support me for the time and effort that goes into editing these and recording them and everything, especially while being a student in school and just being extremely, extremely stressed out. Can be greatly appreciated, but no pressure to support. Just watching is enough for me. So, thank you for watching, and I will see you later.